What's up, everyone? I'm Woody Woodrow, here with my Yoga for Musicians series, and this month I have the honor of interviewing Missy Kai Yoga.
What's up, guys?
So grateful to be here with her. She teaches yoga therapy. So she not only teaches it, but she helps people through things using yoga as therapy. She's also started a series to inspire men to do yoga. And at the same time, she's a super badass drummer. But don't let me tell you, she's gonna tell you. So, tune in. So thanks for joining us, guys. Missy, can you start by telling everyone what inspired you to start playing the drums?
What inspired me to start playing the drums? Oh my gosh, we're going way back in my history. So I started playing drums when I was maybe about 6. My father had a recording studio in our basement.
So
he
cool.
played in a band called No Beach Access.
Amazing.
So his drummer had the drums at our house, and it was always something that was available to me, but I didn't actually try to start with drums. When I would wander downstairs and try to see what my dad was up to, I actually tried to pick up the bass guitar, but I have these like tiny little hands, and I was this tiny little girl, and I'm like, Daddy, how do I play this? And he's like, honey, I think that's a little bit big for you. Let's try something else. So I actually ended up on the drum set, and he showed me a couple things, and the guys in his band showed me a couple things, and I would like wander downstairs and play with their band sometimes. And I started actually getting pretty good to the point where my mom bought me some drum lessons, and I started that when I was 12 years old. And I took lessons all the way through I was 18 and going off to college. So
No way.
yeah, from the same guy too.
So cool. And
Yeah.
like, what style of music?
I studied everything, so I was always very much into rock. I started very much like pop punk and and that whole style, and then I got more into like alternative music, and then there I got into like the screamo thing was getting big around that time, and then I made my way into metal and heavy metal. But in the meantime, I was also playing in jazz band at my high school. I went to a Catholic girls' high school, and they didn't offer any music classes aside from like choir and violin. And I was like, I don't want to sing in the choir about Jesus. I want to rock out. Like, I was like, this doesn't sit with me. So I got special permission to go to the all-boys school and play in their jazz band. So yeah, so I was like in this band with a bunch of dudes. That just kind of seemed to be my teenage years, of just playing in a band with a bunch of dudes.
Cool. That's so amazing. That's so amazing. So
Yeah.
when did yoga come into your life?
Ooh, that's such a good question too. Yoga came into my life because I was in Barnes & Noble shopping for a present for my dad for his birthday, and I saw a yoga DVD there, and I took it home. I think it was like Rodney Yee or something like that, and I did it, and it just felt good in my body. It was very much a physical practice for me at that time, and it was something I always wanted to do, but kind of just flirted with on the surface until I got out of university and was starting my public accounting job, and there was so much stress involved with that. It was like, I need an outlet, and so I just decided to take up my yoga practice more seriously. And luckily, my teacher at that time was a very traditional Ayurvedic practitioner, very traditional Ashtangi practitioner. So she introduced me to the 8 limbs, she introduced me to the yamas, the niyamas, and just this other side of yoga, which has a lot of healing benefits to it. And as somebody who is very like sick, and at that time I had a lot of like digestive issues, Ayurveda and yoga worked when nothing else had worked. And so for my whole life, I was always being told, like, you'll always be on medication for the rest of your life. You're always going to be sick. There's something wrong with you. We need this outside person to fix you. And yoga, coming into yoga after my university was the first time I got this message of, there's nothing wrong with you. You are a whole integrated being, but there's just some imbalances that we can work on with yoga, and it works better than anything else I'd ever done. It's crazy.
Work on it as a whole.
Yeah, you are a person. Like, what a concept. Like, you are a whole individual. I know, crazy, right? But just being at that impressionable age and being in music and having this condition which made me feel very disembodied, yoga was so therapeutic for me. So I've always had that healing intention in my practice, and that's really what brought me to that's really what brought me to where I am today with the therapeutic side of things. So that's a very
cool.
long
Yeah, you're good. I appreciate it.
answer
Awesome.
to your question, but all of it is very intertwined.
Yeah.
Because music is one of those other few outlets for me that really worked too, in ways that other things didn't, or medication didn't. So
it's cool how they mirror each other.
they really
and
do.
Their healing properties.
They really do. They really do in many ways.
It's
so
super cool. So in your journey through yoga,
Yeah.
have you had to overcome, or can you maybe share an example of having to overcome some obstacles on your path to essentially live your passion and what you feel is your purpose?
Oh my God. Well, let's just talk about money first. No.
Yeah, fair.
Right. Well, there was so much resistance every step of the way because I went to business school, right? And I was working in accounting. I have a very systematically trained mind. And so by profession, that's just what I did. That's how I thought about things. I thought there was a right and a wrong way to do things. But my breaking point was really when I was still working my full-time accounting job, but I had a panic attack outside of one of my clients' offices. It was the CFO's office. It was so embarrassing. I went home that day and just like cried and cried and cried. So I knew for sure, like at that point, I was going to yoga classes like 6 days a week. I was reading all of these blogs. I was following all these people. I was really into it, but super in denial about it. And finally, like that panic attack was my breaking point where I was like, my body is literally like allergic to this this physical environment, and something really has to change for me. So that started about what is now a 4-year journey of transitioning from what I thought I wanted to do with my life to what I'm doing with my life now. So I would say it was just a lot of unraveling of different layers and coming to this point where I saw yoga as something that could be a full-time living and lifestyle, because it's not just the unraveling the stories of leaving the 9-to-5 job, or as it was at the time, it was an 8-to-10 job, but actually saying that, okay, even though yoga is represented as all of these things in Western society and that message doesn't necessarily resonate with me, I can approach it and offer it in a way that is meaningful and valuable in a therapeutic context, and it will be so differentiated that and that just took me a while of coming to this place of I do have something to offer, what my perspective is valuable, as opposed to get in line and do it the right way, or here's the ladder, go climb it. Your life's path is to climb this ladder. And so yoga therapy really challenged me and is still challenging me to constantly redefine what success is for me.
Epic.
Right, because there's no end game in yoga. Like that's what differentiates yoga from like personal training, for example. Because I've worked out with personal trainers and stuff too, but there's still this mentality of like, let's smash goals, like let's get it. And with yoga, the practice is the goal. That's it. You just do the practice. There's no end game with that. Just show up, right? And so that was a completely different way of doing things for me. So that took me a long time to get over that. And then it also took me a long time as a teacher to get over this idea of I'm going to come in and fix somebody. Rather, instead, it's this perspective like I'm guiding you back towards yourself using these tools of yogic practice in a therapeutic way.
So cool. Cool. So I was going to wonder, and I am wondering, I should say, I was going to ask what your definition of what yoga therapy would be, and if you could define that for everyone, because I don't think everyone's necessarily heard of yoga therapy. I think people have heard of yoga, but yoga therapy, I think it's a little bit different.
Right, that's a great question. I'm so glad you asked. So yoga therapy is a different profession, field, industry than yoga itself, and this is evidenced by the recent split between Yoga Alliance and the International Association of Yoga Therapists. So it really is its own unique profession. Yoga therapy is distinguished in several ways. There's additional training you need. There's a separate credential for it. Yoga therapy is 1,000-hour certification, whereas yoga teachers, the base certification is 200 hours. And so my teachers were chiropractors and yoga teachers and physical therapists and yoga teachers and psychotherapists and yoga teachers, right? So to synthesize it and really summarize it down to a point, it's essentially the combination of modern evidence-based medicine and the Eastern principles and approach of yoga and Ayurveda as a holistic, complete healing system, right? So it's taking both the East and Western perspectives. We have the ancient Eastern perspective here and the modern Western science here, and we're combining it together. So it's very cutting edge. Yoga therapy is in the complementary and alternative medical field. It's called CAM professions. Things like chiropractic and acupuncture all fall into that sort of like holistic alternative therapeutic modality range, but yoga therapy is distinguished from those other ones because, again, we're taking a holistic approach to it, right? So whereas most Westerners would conceive of a yoga practice as sort of a fitness practice or a workout, yoga therapy comes in and says, as a holistic being, as a whole individual, what do we need to balance in your physical being, your mental well-being, your emotional well-being, your aspects of connection and how you operate as a person in the world, and we seek to bring all of these aspects of your being into balance, right? So I would just say that, again, in synthesis, it's the combination of ancient Eastern healing practices and Western modern medicine to individually adapt and provide the yogic practices to each person.
So cool. It's almost like the ultimate yoga, considering that yoga needs to bring together. So you're thinking of both sides. You're kind of yoking.
For sure.
East and West.
And I really see this as yoga therapy is so interesting because it's such at the forefront of what's going on in the wellness center, right, or the wellness world right now. We're seeing a lot of demand increase for alternative therapies. But yoga, again, uniquely has this, thousands of years of rich culture and history and trial and error and all of that. And in fact, many of the most recent and, cutting edge pain science studies are basically just yoga. It's fascinating stuff.
So
it's like Western science and medicine is now catching up to what the yogis knew and taught for thousands of years. And the difference being that as Westerners, we always need some sort of proof. We need it to go through the scientific process. Whereas the yogis say, I don't know why it works all the time, I just know that it does. And that's good enough for me. And so I'm going to make sure to teach it to you in a way that you can understand and benefit from it. And so I don't care what you call what we're doing. I just care that you feel better. Right? It's just like, wow, mind-blowing.
That resonates so hard with me, yeah.
It probably will for a lot of people too, because I didn't even know this was a thing. Like if I had learned about yoga therapy when I was 13, 14, 15 years old and being told like you have this, uncurable, acute chronic disease, like wow, what a different journey I would have gone through of not feeling like my body is this uncontrollable thing, right? So I think a lot of us think about the body as like a machine and our brains are like the operating system, right? But yoga, we take that and change that perspective and say, okay, it's not really like a computer exactly, it's more of like your body's a garden. And, if there's blockages in the water flow or if there's, not the right nutrients that you're putting in your body or it's not being worked the right way, then imbalances happen over time. That's normal.
That's deep, I love it. So you started a series called Yoga for Men.
Yes.
And I would love to dive into that a little bit. And I was wondering what the intention behind that was when you started it.
Yes, oh my gosh, I love talking about this and I love getting guys involved in yoga practice because through my research and through my experience, I've seen that over and over, once guys get past this initial hump of learning what yoga is and is not, and learning how it can be a really effective practice for them, it becomes like a 5, 10, 20-year practice. So that's something in their life always. And there's very, very few things, and again, music is one of those other things, that can be like that in your life, that you can practice easily for 20 years. Think about like doing basketball or baseball or, kind of your joints wear out or, like even certain spiritual or religious practices we might grow out of or grow into and then move on as our, concept of spirituality evolves. But with men, I noticed that, again, in the West, yoga is a very feminized thing. I did a research survey asking men all over the world what their impression is of yoga, and I think like 80% of them agreed with the statement that yoga is for women.
I used to think the same thing, so.
Everybody does, and it's understandable why, because look at how it's marketed. Look at who is on the face of yoga magazines and covers. Most yoga teachers are, slender white females. I myself fit that stereotype, but I'm very sensitive to, gender inclusivity, right? So I started noticing that why are there so many women in class, and the converse of that, like, where are the guys? And I was just really curious about it. So as part of my yoga therapy training, we had to write a research paper on something we learned or something we were interested in about yoga therapy. So I took this assignment and really just ran with it. And I started doing research, and I realized that there's literally almost no research, like high level quality scientific tier academic research on yoga for men. I was just like, but there's oodles and oodles of research on yoga for women's health, yoga for this, yoga for that thing. And I was like, what's with the guys? Like, where are the guys, and why are they being left out of this this great beneficial healing thing? It just drove me crazy. So I started asking. I started getting a little nosy. Yoga Journal published a study in 2016 about yoga in America and the participants and practitioners, and so only 3 out of every 10 practitioners in America are men.
Oh,
now
wow.
that's up from 4 years ago where it was 2 out of every 10 practitioners, so it's headed in the right direction. Wow. But ideally it would be 50-50, right? Because yoga is truly for everybody. The whole point of yoga therapy is to adapt the practice to the person, and so if we're appropriately adapting a practice, there's no reason why someone shouldn't be able to practice yoga. Per se, right?
Totally.
So the results of this survey was just fascinating. Some of the main points I took away from it is the perception that yoga is largely for women, which is not true. The other perception is that yoga is mainly for flexibility and for physical practice, which is also not true.
Totally.
The other impression I got was that it wasn't that men didn't want to do yoga, it's that there were these other psychological, socio-cultural barriers getting in the way. Because, for example, there's not as many yoga pant companies for guys. I asked one of my friends, I'm like, hey man, why don't you ever go to yoga? He's like, yoga pants, great for stretching, bad for hairy assholes. And I was like, I feel you, man. But then I started wondering, like, why aren't there better yoga pants out there for guys?
Yeah.
Like, right? It just didn't make any sense to me. Another thing that I came away with is guys hate looking incompetent, and because most guys are less flexible than women, I'm speaking in generalities here, they don't want to feel embarrassed. In the middle of class, they don't want to look like an idiot, they don't want to feel like they don't know what they're doing, especially if there's like a cute instructor or if there's a cute girl in the room, right? Right? Guys don't like to feel like they don't know what they're doing, they want to be seen as like strong. And that's the other thing too, is I think the part of yoga that feels feminized is that it's very much about connecting with your body, connecting with your emotions, connecting with your spirituality, your sense of connection with yourself and the world. And that comes off as a lot of touchy-feely for guys, to the point where it completely turns them off. And so I think that yoga is not being taught or offered in language that men can resonate with. And it's just like music, like you might like a certain kind of music and I might like a certain kind of music, and our mood might change every now and then too, but if we're not talking in the same language that you will understand and resonate with, the message isn't going to sit, right?
Totally resonate with
So, just to put it in a musical analogy, you guys do that too, right? So you take cover songs and you make it into a rock song, right? Because your fans like that music. Well, it's kind of the same thing. It's like we're all teaching the same thing with yoga, but I'm going to make sure to put it in a way that guys can resonate with and understand. So instead of like, shine the heart forward in upward facing dog, I'm going to say, okay, lift the sternum towards the sky.
Yeah. How do I shine?
What does that mean?
Where's my shine?
Yeah. They don't care about their lotus flower chakra unflowering, they don't care. They're just like, what do I need to do to feel better in my body? What do I need to do to relieve stress? And a lot of times guys' motivation for practicing yoga is not the same as women's. guys practice yoga to enable themselves to do something in their life. Unfortunately, it's just kind of true where the practice itself isn't always necessarily the motivator, but it's like, I want to do yoga so I can warm up before a basketball game and not injure myself.
Yeah.
I want to do yoga so I relieve some stress so that when I go into this really high stress meeting that I don't lose my shit, you know? Or I want to learn how to do stretches so when I'm traveling all over the world and I'm cramped in tiny spaces on the tour bus or just like, you know, a really long hard night of rocking out, you know how to take care of yourself and your body the next day, right? Because even in yoga therapy, where it has a much more therapeutic, simple, direct context that's individually applied, I can't be there with you the whole time. I need you to know how to do this yourself, right? So in that way, it's a very empowering practice, whereas I feel like a lot of times yoga teachers try to come in and almost like preach at you, be like, this is how it should be, this is real yoga. And I'm saying, no, get rid of all of that, get rid of all the pretense, get rid of all of the marketing, get rid of all of that bullshit, and let's just get to the heart of it in a language that guys can understand. So I asked a lot of my friends to help share this message because I think it's so important for many, many reasons. The first reason is that guys need to balance their bodies. A lot of them are working with common imbalances like in the hips, the shoulders, the neck, low back areas that are very, very easy to heal with yoga. The second part of it is getting more in touch with their sensations in their body and interpreting that as biofeedback. So a lot of times guys try to push through things, push through workouts, push through the tour, push through this.
Totally.
Everything is like very go, 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 very competitive and hyper-masculinized in that sense. But yoga flips that paradigm on their head and says, now you have space to just feel. Whoa. And I find that it's not that guys aren't unwilling to do that or they don't want that in their life. They just don't know how to communicate it. They don't know where to find that space. And with their bros or on the road is not the place to do it.
Yeah.
And so yoga therapy, right?
So in your experience, what's one, if you could choose one piece of powerful advice that you got from, could be a friend, teacher, colleague, on your journey, what would it be? Can you enlighten us?
That's so difficult to pare it down to one. I would say the main message and theme of yoga therapy, of Embodied for Men, of everything that I'm doing, is twofold. The first part is to individualize the practice, personalize it, make it work for you. And that can mean it's very simple. A yoga practice does not have to look like an hour-long vinyasa class. We have to keep reminding ourselves of that. It could just look like a 5-minute meditation or breathing exercise, and that's okay. Totally. You're still doing yoga.
Regardless, if you're on your back and you're just laying there breathing, you're still doing it.
You're still doing yoga. Yes, it does count. So along those lines of personalizing your practice, this is a call towards intimacy. And I feel like a lot of, not just musicians, but men particularly, are missing that in their life, of an intimate relationship with themselves and an intimate relationship with others around them from a real true space of heart connection. So keep from this place of personalizing your practice, allow this to be an invitation towards greater intimacy with yourself, because that will spread in all of the different areas of your life. And it has so much potency and power in that, because you'll be moving from a more authentic and connected place within yourself. So things like making big decisions, or knowing what kind of song material you want to write, or managing difficult situations on tour, anything like that is going to be so much easier because you know what your practice is, you've adapted it to yourself, and it's so close to your heart and so close to you that it's always going to be there to help anchor you.
Yeah, so create your own practice and stay open.
Just create your own practice, stay open.
That's what's up.
Yeah.
So, where can people find out about you? Whether to experience it with therapy, just to learn more about you, just to connect. Where would you like people to find more info?
Yeah, absolutely. Probably the best way to stay in touch with me, like I have a website and social media, all that stuff, but just to hop on my email list. I don't know, there's probably a better way to get people to direct to that. We can like post a link or something like that. Or you can just go to my website and there will be a way to sign up for the email list. It's missykai.yoga. Everything is Missy Kai Yoga, so you can search me on Facebook or Instagram. My website, everything is Missy Kai Yoga. So And I do encourage you guys to get in touch with me. I always offer a free 30-minute phone consultation. So I've talked to people all over the world, and I love doing this. It's fascinating stuff. So I do love to offer my time in that way because I want to give freely from a place of service. And even if we never work together formally, it's often those 30 minutes are enough to at least get somebody started.
Okay.
And that's always my goal, is like, what can I do to get you started? What are the first steps to take? So again, don't overcomplicate it. You know, either just sign up for the email list or give me a call.
Yeah.
You know, I'm here, you can talk to me.
I love it.
So yeah, either
Amazing.
email me or call me.
Yeah, so hit her up and get to know her. She's
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah, I feel like I'm pretty approachable.
I think so.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah, I'm not too judgmental. So I mean, I've really heard like some weird things in sessions. So
Yeah.
like,
Oh, I bet.
like no
You gotta stay
judgment.
open. You gotta stay open. It's like you make your own practice. You gotta stay open too. So.
Yeah,
Respect
exactly.
that. Well, thank you for taking the time.
Thank you
Appreciate
so
you a lot. It's been an
much.
honor and a pleasure. Thanks for sharing your wealth of knowledge.
Yeah, absolutely.
And make sure you check out Missy's website. I will put links
Appreciate it.
below in the bio, so definitely check that out. And thanks for tuning in. Keep rocking, keep breathing, and be the rock star of your own life, all right? Namaste. So weird, though.
Yeah.
Thanks.